Good morning, everyone. Welcome to STL History Live. Our presentation this morning is Great Rivers Confluence Tour, the Mississippi and Illinois. I'm Tammy Goldman. I'm the Director of Tourism and Group Sales at the Missouri Historical Society. Today, I'm your host and technical assistant to ensure that the program runs smoothly, hopefully. Due to the present situation, nearly all of our programming is virtual, as you know. That's why you've tuned in. However, the Missouri History Museum, Soldiers Memorial, and our library are open to visit Wednesday through Sunday. Because your safety is our top priority, the capacity to all the buildings are restricted and we do require advance reservations. We hopefully have made it pretty easy for you to do so. All tickets are timed and of course are free, as are all the buildings, but you do need to reserve in advance. So just go to plan your visit at mohistory.org and you can arrange for your tickets. Before we begin, I want to express my gratitude first and foremost to Bank of America, who is the presenting sponsor of the Mighty Mississippi exhibition, which you could go visit at the Missouri History Museum. A special thanks to all those in the audience that are members of the Missouri Historical Society. We are forever grateful for your contributions. If you're not a member and are interested, you can certainly go to our website, mohistory.org/support, and there you can find information about supporting the institution through membership. And lastly, I shouldn't say lastly, we appreciate the support of the Zoo Museum Tax District. So those of you that live in the St. Louis City and County, we greatly appreciate your contributions. So just a few things I want to remind you about today's program. It will be roughly about 30 to 40 minutes for the presentation and will be followed by a question and answer session, again, about 10 to 15 minutes. You can submit your questions through the toolbar. There's a Q&A section. And you can submit your questions at any time, but we won't answer them until the end. I'll do a quick reminder at the very end to submit your questions, just to remind you of that. And we will do our very best to get to all the questions, but we are on a time schedule. So in case we don't get to all the questions, we will try to follow up with you via email. Today's presentation is being recorded, so if you'd like to view it again or share with your friends, you can do so. It will be posted on the Missouri Historical Society YouTube page. And lastly, your feedback is always important to us. We have a survey that will pop up. It will be in your browser after this presentation is over. It's a Kobo toolbox survey. So if you have a few moments after this is over, please fill it out and give us your feedback. So let's get down to why you're here. Today's program was actually originally meant to be a day-long bus tour, but today I've asked David to do the impossible, and that is to condense a full day program into 40 minutes. But he's going to do it, he assured me. This program will not be seen outside your coach window, but on your computer screen. I hope very soon that we will be out back on those motor coaches discovering St. Louis. Today's program, as I mentioned, is presented this morning by the Missouri Historical Society's Curator of Environmental Life, David Lobig. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let David share his, and please take it away. I hope you all enjoy.
Thank you, Tammy. It's wonderful to be here with you all. I am really excited to go on this virtual bus tour. We would normally be leaving the Historical Society building by now. Oh my goodness, we'd be late because we would want to beat the heat, right, normally. But welcome back to our facilities in general, and I hope that you can come and see the exhibit when you're not on the Zoom virtual meetings and tours. I want you to know that Mighty Mississippi, the exhibit that inspires this, will be up into next year, but there's a lot to see. So I hope that you go and see it soon and often, if you haven't already, in one of our 6,000 square foot galleries on the bottom floor of the Emerson Center. The tour today will be to the Mississippi and Illinois River confluences. Previously, we went to the Mississippi and Missouri River confluence, which is a very big landmark for us here in St. Louis. But back in an earlier period of time when everybody traveled by water, the Illinois River was also a vital network in this hub that centers in our area to get around, to transport goods and people. So a super, super important feature of our landscape. So if you're like our family cats, you've been inside for a long time, maybe too much, and it's time to get out. And why don't you hop on the bus with me, socially distanced, of course, and we'll take an aerial view first of the Mississippi River watershed. This is something that I try to bring up a lot in every presentation I do, and it's certainly in the exhibit, that we live in a gigantic watershed that's important to North America. That blue line in the middle, that's the Mississippi River, going from north to south, as I hope everybody knows. But you can see that it's in the heart of the country and that we're in the center of that. And if you take another view of it, one of the infographics that we share in the exhibit, you can see the different parts of this watershed are all, many of them are converging here in our region, in the middle region. So that little fleur-de-lis in the middle, that's St. Louis, and we pull it out in that circle and show all these rivers coming together in this part of the country. So above the Illinois River, you see all these states draining in to the Mississippi, some of them through the Illinois itself. So Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota. A lot of what we think of here as the middle Mississippi is traditionally from the Missouri River down to the Ohio River. And that's about 195 miles from St. Louis or the Missouri River confluence down to the Ohio. But what's super important, I think, is that other line on the map. You see that little white line that I emphasized in blue with a blue arrow. That's the Illinois River coming in very nearby. So that's what we're going to look at today, is how that affects our area, or where we can go to see that. And again, our confluence region from another view, an enhanced aerial satellite view, shows us here in the St. Louis area in the Missouri River confluence, and there's the Illinois River confluence coming in. The Illinois coming in from the north, and the Mississippi just to the left of that. And of course, horizontal across the screen is the Missouri River. So here's an even closer view, another satellite view of St. Louis, the community. And it shows you that, sorry, we've got a little problem with the next animation. There, St. Louis metro area. And I'm sorry, I lost my circles on that one. Well, anyway, you can see St. Louis is that cluster of tight blocks at the bend in the Mississippi. And if you go up down towards the lower right corner, if you go up to the upper left corner, you can see the Mississippi coming in almost west to east. And from the very corner itself, coming down from the top, is the Illinois River, and it's joining. So this is the Emil Krause print. The Bank of America, our corporate sponsors, one of our corporate sponsors, the main one, donated a beautiful color tinted print of this. And the family itself of Emil Krause donated a proof of this. It's an 1854 view of St. Louis, an aerial view. Very imaginative of the artist to get it from the sky, but showing it in great accuracy. And you can see why the city of St. Louis is so significant, as to have this port where you can go upriver and then around the bend, and you can get to the Missouri and the Illinois rivers. Here's the Mississippi River coming down towards St. Louis, and the Missouri coming in from the left, and the Illinois right there too. So in this earlier map from 1732, you can really get a feel for what people were thinking at the time as this nexus of rivers, super important for developing communities and colonizing the area. Of course, Native Americans, for thousands of years before that, found that these waterways, like the Illinois River, were a great way to commute up to towards the Great Lakes and other parts of the country. That's the Illinois River's watershed in light yellow. So you can see from the air another view of where we're going. These are all views of near the confluences, just upstream of us. Also, it's a flyway, a river in the sky. And I always want to emphasize this, that the birds think very, very annually about migrating up and down the rivers and trying to find their ways. Some birds are more resident, like these blackbirds, but others migrate with the seasons. This is an area that has had a significant loss in the watershed, and I'm concerned, as I think we should all be, that at the biodiversity loss due to our paving of the landscape around the rivers and drying them out and using them as farmlands and channelizing the river has actually altered it significantly, and there's less biodiversity than there once was, less viability, less resiliency. So this is some of the habitat. These are all photographs from around here, some of the birds you see. Another graphic from the exhibit. Here's some pelicans near where we're going, near Deer Plain, which is in Calhoun County. And they fly over and kettle and have a playful time up in the air. There's a turkey vulture and an eagle, which I photographed near here, and a great blue heron. And back in the day, our predecessors, the St. Louis Audubon Society in the 1930s, were all about the river taking photographs. These are from our collection. And they were getting into these areas and finding these very same places filled with birds. Now we can still find lots of them today. So that's one asset, but there are many others. The landscape is beautiful. It's an amazing place. So here's where we're going. We're going to go from the St. Charles area, because I think we're all pretty familiar with how to get there. And we're going to move out from St. Charles towards the Golden Eagle Ferry. So St. Charles is in, of course, St. Charles County. And I did have a graphic on this map that has disappeared. It shows you that to the lower right is St. Louis County, and then St. Charles is situated in St. Charles County between the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers. And we're going to go across the Golden Eagle Ferry to Calhoun County, up to the Two Rivers National Wildlife Refuge, and then to another ferry, the Brussels Ferry, and across the Mississippi River to Fair Marquette State Park in Illinois. So that's in Jersey County, and we're going to go down to Alton, Illinois, which is in Madison County. And then our journey at the Alton Bridge, what's called the William Clark Bridge, the Clark Bridge at Alton. Oh, there are the graphics. Sorry. You have the counties all expressed there, so you can see where you are and where you might be going. Another way to get there is through paddling, and I love to advocate for getting out on the rivers as best you can. So in 2007, the Mississippi River Water Trails Association was established, and they can help people get out to the rivers. So please check that out if you have an opportunity. So the first leg of the trip is from St. Charles to the Two Rivers National Wildlife Refuge, and we're going to go by way of Huster Boulevard to Highway B there in St. Charles, and then right on the Golden Eagle Ferry road to the landing. And this is what the road looks like in St. Charles County. Very flat floodplain where crops are typically planted. And we're going to look for that sign, the Golden Eagle Ferry sign. Then it takes us into the river bottom. And we're going to catch the ferry here. You can see that at the landing. It's already come in, and that's Calhoun County across the way. And you just load on the ferry. Now you'll need $8 to get across, or $15 if you're going to do a round trip and come back again later, same day. So you can plan ahead here. This is the only cost that you'll really have other than gasoline to go on the Golden Eagle Ferry. So it's privately run. And that's the view. It's of course, the weather changes all the time, and you'll want to pay attention to that. You'll want to also be very cognizant of whether it has flooded recently. So sometimes it's important to call ahead and find out if, or at least check the weather and see what the likelihood is of these boats running, these two ferries. So this first one, again, is a private ferry, so there's a cost. There's a pelican out on a sandbar. And we're going into Calhoun County. That's it up ahead. That's what the ferry looks like on the car deck. It's basically a little barge. And I realize a lot of people haven't taken car ferries around here. They're small. It only takes a few minutes to get across. It has a little towboat that's pushing it across. And we're going to go to this wonderful peninsula in Calhoun County, called Calhoun County in Illinois. It's formed between these two rivers. It is very, very different than St. Charles County, at least near the rivers, because it is so so hilly and high. It's been inhabited for over 10,000 years by Native Americans. This is a site replete with many archaeological finds, and very worth preserving the heritage of Native Americans by protecting those sites. It's a very important thing to do. There are only 5,000 people or so there, so it's the least or third least populated county in the state, and it's part of the metro area. And I think that's important for us to remember. That's actually considered to be part of our statistical metropolitan area. And it's so rural, it's so different than St. Louis City. I encourage everybody to check it out for all those amenities that I've noted here. So there's several villages you would want to see up the peninsula. And right now we're only going to be able to take a look at the lower end. I'm sorry, it's such a big place that you could spend literally days there in Calhoun County and checking out the different sites. So in 1673, Marquette and Joliet, these early French explorers, the first ones to search for the source of the Mississippi and come close to understanding where it was, were looking for the various river connections and coming south. And when they returned, after they went down to about the Arkansas River, they returned to camp near the Illinois River, or on the Illinois River. We believe maybe it's Perrin's Ledge, which is near Campsville, which is also an important archaeological site. And there's a village that is probably there. So a little bit later, the Sieur de La Salle noted that there was a massacre of Illinois Indians, Illini Confederacy Indians by the Iroquois, very close to where we are now at Deer Plain. It was a massacre because the Iroquois were being pushed west by the colonial Europeans, and they were coming into conflict with the Illinois Indians, who had been well established here for quite some time. So there are various French settlement sites here, and it's also a place that now today, and for the last more than 100 years, has been producing fruits and grain crops, especially peaches. Calhoun County is well known for its peaches. These are barrels of peaches loaded on the St. Louis Landing next to the Eads Bridge. They would come in by steamboat, riverboat, and be delivered here for the market in St. Louis, and still are a great, source of Calhoun County peaches in these farms. Also corn. And here's some of the rolling fields. So this looks so different from where we were on that floodplain a little while ago. I think you'll recognize that it's remarkably hilly and a very different community and different way of life than some nearby areas. There are a lot of winding roads that are traveled very quickly by vehicles, especially motorcycles. So drive safely, be careful. If you're biking, be very careful. There are places to visit, of course, shops and stores, and not a lot, but this is the Hagen Family Orchard, which is on Rural Route 1 near Golden Eagle Landing. So they sell pumpkins and fruit and things like that. There are other places, of course, you get treats. So we're going to Two Rivers National Wildlife Refuge, as I showed you, and this is actually something that's spread out into different parts of the river area. So on both sides of the Mississippi River here in Calhoun County, as well as in Jersey County, they have different divisions. We're looking at the Calhoun and Portage Island area mostly. In 1858, it was established to protect and enhance migratory bird habitat. It's open most days, but again, you'll want to call ahead and make sure that flooding, weather, and other constraints haven't restricted access. But you can walk in without admission, without going through a permitting system. And here it is on a map. The Two Rivers National Wildlife Refuge is in that circle. This is the portion that we're looking at Calhoun County at Gilbert Lake. And then there's the Portage Island Division down there. There are other divisions, as I said, at Batchtown, Clarksville, and Apple Creek Division. But we're not going there today. As I said, it's too far away for us. So that's the visitor center. That's a view from the viewing platform. They have trails that you can take. It's a short trail out into the floodplain. You can see lots of wildlife, birds of various kinds. Off in the distance is the Mississippi River. There are wildflowers of all sorts. And of course, it's also a place that, it's a wildlife refuge. It's a place for birds and fish and other animals to take refuge and reproduce and be available for hunting and fishing. So now we're going to leave that at that yellow star is where we've been, and we're going to go, and that's Deer Plain, where the Sieur de La Salle saw the massacre of the Illinois people by the Iroquois. And we're going to go around Deer Plain and down Route 1, rural Route 1 to the ferry at Brussels Ferry. Now this is a little tricky if you Google it. They're going to take you all the way up the peninsula and across the bridge up at Hardin. So you really have to, if you're going to Google this and search for the pathway again on your own, you'll want to denote that it's the ferry, the Brussels ferry pickup and drop off point. So that's what you're going to look for, because that'll take you straight across into Illinois to Route 100. And that star that I just placed on the map, that's an entrance to Pere Marquette State Park, which you'll see up above there at the top of the map. We're actually going to go to the other entrance, which is where the visitor center is, and we're going to go up the Scenic Drive. So quickly here, we're going to see the Brussels Ferry South Dock. So remember that the Mississippi River is flowing west to east here. So for landing, this is the south landing. We're going to go to the north landing by way of the boat. So first we go to the south dock and load on the ferry. So it's very similar to the other one. It's another barge that's pushed by a towboat. But there are all these limitations. You want to pay attention to proper behavior on the boat. So pay attention to those signs and drive safely. So that's what it looks like when you're on the boat looking back at the landing. And there's the tow pivoting. It has a little hinge, and it turns around back and forth as it moves across the river each way. And there it is pushing across to Jersey County, actually. And that's a look downstream towards Alton. You can see on the horizon there, those little white things, those are bluffs. Beautiful palisaded bluffs. We'll get a closer look at them later. That is, I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. I think I said the Mississippi. I meant the Illinois River. Yeah, we're going across the Illinois. We went across the Mississippi earlier. And there are the Palisades, the bluffs more clearly. And we're going over to Grafton, the Grafton area, just north of, upstream, or it's actually west of Grafton. So beautiful scenes. It's a beautiful ride. It doesn't take very long, again, just a few minutes, but take it in as you can. It's worth going back and forth all the time, I think, or many times. Different weather, different times of year. I've taken these pictures over different parts of the year. This is the muddy water. It's really muddy everywhere there. It's not just the Mississippi or the Missouri that's muddy. And the Illinois is also bringing a lot of silt down. So you put your hand in and you would not be able to see it at the end of your arm if you extended it all the way. So that's a beautiful scene. It's a very pastoral, easy scene, easy ride. And this ferry doesn't cost anything. It's operated by the state of Illinois. So again, though, you want to make sure that there isn't a flooding condition that would make it hazardous for them to transport cars across. They will shut down under those circumstances if it's a high flood or if there's a lot of ice. So in the wintertime, it also runs in the wintertime. These people have to get back and forth to work and to families on on the Calhoun Peninsula. And so this is their lifeline, other than driving all the way up to Hardin, which is a long, long trip. It could take you a couple more hours to get someplace if you go that route up the peninsula to the bridge. So again, the view downriver, and there are lots of boats here. There are a lot of boaters, recreational boaters, as well as commercial boats. It is a navigable river. The Illinois is a river that has been navigable for all time, but with large boats in the steamboat era, and then subsequently tugs with their barges, there are plenty that still ply these waters. Native Americans were using it for their canoes, of course, and you might remember stories of Abraham Lincoln navigating on a boat on the Sangamon River up near Springfield. So this takes you up that route into the heart of Illinois country, upper Illinois, and allows you to get northeast into that part of the country. So, but there are a lot of commercial boaters today, leisure boaters, and here's the deck again and the boat itself. You can see that hinge, that's right up front here. So the boat just pivots around and pushes the barge the other way when it's going to go back towards Calhoun County. And there it is landing. So this is a view from a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers vehicle that I took years ago. And here's kind of looking down on it at the landing near Grafton, just upstream of Grafton, as I said. And you can see how big it is, and the cars would go onto that barge. And they have other boats in the area that they use for maintenance and alternate out those other tows. So we're going to Pere Marquette State Park, as I showed you on the map. Now, you could go either direction, as I said, left or right, but I'm going to go left and go up to the main entrance near the Visitor Center. So this is an 8,000 acre area. It was founded in 1931 as a Piasa Bluff State Park, and it's operated by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. It has wonderful hiking trails. It's very hilly, so you'll want to bring your boots. You'll probably want to, in right weather, you probably need mosquito protection and maybe sunscreen, but mosquito protection. But it's a wonderful set of trails, beautiful scenery, very hilly, very rugged, and really quite nice. There are also more accessible areas if you just want to go to a lookout. It's also hunting in the area, and it was named after Jacques Marquette, that explorer that we mentioned earlier, who I hope you all know. So there's a boat ramp and a harbor. There are all these amenities there. It's really quite impressive. The scenic drive, which we'll be on in a moment. A beautiful campground area, and a lodge, which is really incredible. The lodge and the cabins that were built by the Civilian Conservation Corps back in the 30s are a real treasure, and they're worth seeing just in themselves. It's now operated by a private concession, a commercial concession. The state no longer operates it directly, but you can get a room there or a cabin. They also have a dining hall, so it's a place for a little break. This is a westward view. So now, remember, the Illinois River is moving from what would be in this view, the right-hand side, the north, and going, right-hand side would be west, and it's moving east, which is on the left. So it's in the big view, it's moving south to the Mississippi River, but in this little segment, this right here, it's moving west to east. So it's moving from our right-hand side to our left-hand side, and now we're looking west across towards Calhoun County, or at Calhoun County, and then across to Missouri on the other side of the Mississippi River. So you can kind of see those layers there. And here's another view of that. And you can actually see the Two Rivers Wildlife Refuge. There's some on this side of the river as well. And you can really appreciate how this is all knit with waterways and backwater pools, lakes. These are all managed in their various ways to keep the channel open for commerce, but in the main rivers. But this is just dotted with water in the floodplain, but we're so high up. You can see we're well above the tops of many trees. These trees are on a hillside in front of us, and the floodplain is far, far below us. So we're very high up. See the Two Rivers Wildlife Refuge from there. And so now we're going to travel from the Pere Marquette State Park to Riverview Park in Alton, Illinois. So Pere Marquette Park is in Jersey County, Illinois, and we're going to move down the Highway 100, Route 100, which is a scenic riverway drive, a scenic route, the Great River Road. And we're going to go south, and we're going to pass the entrance that we took to the ferry. And we're going to go through Grafton and by a lot of other towns that are on the way, which one can stop and enjoy as well. And we're going to end up in Alton, Illinois, and we're going to do something that is kind of counterintuitive, or at least not easy to figure out how to do this. We're going to climb up from the floodplain on the river road out onto the bluff to look back out again at the rivers at Riverview Park, which I think is a kind of a secret little gem that people in Alton know about, but not everyone does in the region. So again, that's where we're starting out. We've gone through that scenic drive. There's so much more of it. I didn't, for time's sake, I didn't want to explore it in all of its wonder, but there are some Native American mounds there. There was obviously community there back before colonization. And there are very many important sites. As you can imagine, people have treasured this area for thousands of years. And we're going to end up in Riverview Park. So some of the towns, villages, and management areas of the Great River Road are Grafton, Chautauqua, Elsa, Lock Haven, Alton. Inland, even more from the rivers, there are many more communities. And I will try to recall how to mention some of those, but basically these are the ones on the river and have a real river relationship. They're very close to flooding, for instance. And there's opposite the actual floodplain of the Mississippi, between the Mississippi and the Illinois rivers. On the other side is Portage de Sioux, so downstream of the Illinois confluence. It's the Portage de Sioux community in Missouri. And it's in Charles County. And then there's the Two Rivers management areas I mentioned. There's Stump Lake, Fuller Lake State Fish and Waterfowl management areas. So there are these different agencies, and that's one of the things I wanted to point out, including the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, that are managing for different purposes. And it's hard to grasp that because there aren't, fences or walls necessarily that separate these things. But there's U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, very different U.S. federal agencies managing for different purposes and different needs, the river and its adjacent waterways. And then there are also state agencies at various levels. And we do have two states here, right? There's Illinois on one side and Missouri on the other. So as I live my life, I think about, what are these different folks trying to do and accomplishing? There are also, of course, many private concerns. So there's private land. There are small communities that manage in their own way, like Grafton, Illinois. This is a community that manages its relationship with the river without putting up a flood wall, for instance, or a levee, a high levee. So that's something very different from other communities that choose to do otherwise and wall themselves off from the Mississippi River. So you can see the landing for the boats again there, and that's downstream. So this is again from out in the river. You're looking at the community of Grafton. And here's another view from a few years ago, early in the 20th century, I think, maybe, it's probably early 20th century, not late 19th, that shows a view of Grafton from, as it says, an airship, which I think is a great way of thinking of it. So airship, yeah, so it's probably a plane, and so in the 20th century, and the Mississippi River. So now we're south of, at Grafton, we're south of that confluence. We're just south of the Illinois. So the Illinois is dumping extra water in, and the Mississippi is out there, and Grafton gets hit every now and then. And it was very hard hit in the 1993 flood and some of the subsequent floods. So it's had a difficult time, but it's managed very well, and has a lot of commerce. A lot of it's kind of the party commerce. So it's not exactly what perhaps everyone seeks, but there are places to eat and enjoy oneself, and pull off from the side and see the river. And this is the Route 100 down the River Road, the Great River Road, going south. So remember, we're moving south, or actually east, but downstream on the Mississippi River. So in the big picture, it's south, but here in this particular section of the river, we're going east. And you can see those bluffs up ahead, and that's a unique part of our part of the world. And nestled in some of those bluffs is the community of Elsa, and you can turn off into Elsa. It's a trip back into time. It's very worth taking that turn off to the Elsa village, and the road just basically loops around through and comes back out again. So if you haven't done it before, take a look at some of these buildings. I know this is another old postcard, but the buildings don't look very much different from that today. The owners of those homes have taken remarkable care of it. They also have a creek nearby that sometimes floods with backwater from the rivers, which threatens some of their existence. But again, they've learned to live with the river. This is a commercial tow. That is to say, a boat and two barges, actually probably 6 or so. And you can see the bluffs up above it. And if you're paddling, so if you were on the water trail, the Mississippi River Water Trail, and you would be hopefully cautious of where you're going and staying out of the channel. You can see that little red buoy out there. That's the marker for the channel where you don't want to go because the big boats play there. Now, looking back again from a boat like that towards the shore just upstream of Alton is a quarry area with a cave. You can see a dark area just beyond the barge that's landed there, and a railroad tracks. So you can see the railroad tracks, and there's also the Great River Road goes by. And painted on the bluff is a picture of an historic memory, a memory of the Piasa bird as modern people think of it today. And so this Piasa bird, as it's called, erroneously, by the way, is a creature that is a force of nature that Native Americans held as to be a very powerful force related to the river. So here's a picture by Henry Lewis, made in the early 19th century, showing two depictions of the Piasa bird, a head and then body, over on the right-hand side, and Native Americans firing their guns at it in sort of ceremonial recognition. This was in existence when Marquette and Joliet came down. They reported in at least the surviving journal of Père Marquette, Jacques Marquette, that the Piasa bird was painted on the bluffs. And this is a depiction on a map, the 1678 Franquelin map, that is basically a transliteration of the map made by Joliet, and it shows that same image, of course, facing the other way, and as it was known to be in that area at the time that Marquette and Joliet were there. So Some people call it the underwater spirit. In native language, it's referenced in many different ways. It's thought of as a cat monster or underwater panther. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to explore that today. I would like to more, perhaps on another conversation online, but there are many interesting stories about the Blythesall bird. So now we're ending up in Alton, Illinois. It's about 18 miles north of St. Louis. There's almost 30,000 people there. And it was founded in 1818. It rises on steep bluffs from the river. So like St. Louis, it was well out of the floodplain in many parts of it anyway, most significant parts of it. And it has many interesting attributes. You could take easily a long day and talk about Alton. Happens to be my hometown. There are many wonderful sights to see. I wish we had time to deal with all that here, but I'm just listing some of them for you at this time so that you can. Some of these last industries are no longer in existence. It was an industrial town. This is the water collection or intake site at Alton, and that's just downstream where you can see the flour mills coming up ahead. Here's another postcard view. This is Old Alton at the train station, and where the steamboats landed back in the day. And now we're up on the Riverview Park bluff. So we're high above the river, and you have to turn left right away as soon as you get to the flour mill and wend your way up to Riverview Park. I would give you directions, but they're a little complicated for me to manage right now at this time, but we could, you can, of course, search it online and find your route there, but you're going to go as high as you can in Alton, and you're going to go to this magnificent overview of the Mississippi River. There's a bandstand there where concerts are sometimes played. Currently, the wall has fallen down that keeps people from going over the bluff. So you can see a little portion of that wall in the lower right-hand corner. They have a fencing there that keeps people from going through the bluff now. And hopefully they can get that repaired in the near future so people can more easily and safely view. But you can go there and park nearby and walk in and see a view like this. This is the Portage de Sioux power plant off in the distance and up towards the Illinois River confluence. So that's upstream and then downstream and over into Missouri. So this is the map that we're going to use to go from the Riverview Park back downhill again into downtown Alton and across the Clark Bridge. So that's, Alton has many red brick paved streets, and especially up in this hilly area. So here we're in a precipitous area. It's hard to tell just how precipitous it is, but we're driving away from Riverview Park, and you can see the beautiful view from there and down to the mills, the commercial flour mills that we saw from the river previously in another image. And this is coming back down and out of that hilly area near access to Riverview Park. And we turn left there and go out to Broadway or down to back down to the highway and take the US 67 at Clark Bridge and go back home, and you can connect to 367 or you could take Route 3 back down towards St. Louis on the east side of the river. So I hope you've enjoyed this little trip. If you're paddling with us, you would be happy to be on land right now, probably, and have great memories. So thank you so much for joining us, and I'm happy to take questions or comments. They're available.
So David, why don't you unshare, and then you'll be able to see the questions that will appear in the Q&A. It looks like there's already one. And while you look at that, I'll just use this opportunity to stall just a little bit so we can get some more questions in there. And to mention, you talked about Elsa, Illinois, and we actually do have one discovery tour that we're able to do because it's a walking tour. It's September 26th in Elsa. So we have 7 people signed up, and we can take as many as 10. So to stay in our restrictions for the COVID era. So if anybody is interested, this is a great opportunity.
So can I answer that
Yeah.
question? Yeah. So our commenter really likes the idea of having a presentation on the Payaso bird, and of course there is a lot of information there. I'd love to share that sometime. I don't know if Tammy, we can work together to do that, or maybe some folks with EDD, but our education department. But the Payaso bird, I said it was a misnomer. I'll just say here that you can come to the exhibit, Mighty Mississippi, and read much more about that. Payaso is probably a twisting of the word Payasoh, which is in a native language. I think it's soccer fox. I can't recall right now. But it refers to another sort of creature, or creatures actually, that live at the riverside. And the Payaso bird itself has different names in native languages. And but it's the name that we've adopted. You're an English speaker, so I'd love to talk more about that another time.
Well, we'll see what we can do. And I already have somebody that's interested in the Elsa tour, so I just sent them some information.
Wonderful. Elsa is just a little marvel, isn't it? And I forgot to mention that Principia College is situated nearby. So
beautiful.
Such a beautiful place. Now, during the pandemic, it may have greater restrictions, but they used to allow people to drive around on their campus with, seek permission and ask to come in. And they used to be, one used to be able to do that just by driving up to the guardhouse and asking. But I don't know if they still do that. But it's a beautiful view and a wonderful campus.
Well, and I also took this opportunity to remind people to come visit our Mighty Mississippi exhibit that you worked on so incredibly hard. I mean, it's just such a phenomenal exhibit.
Thank you so much. There, I mentioned the Krause print is in there. It's such a detailed little image of St. Louis from 1854, so it predates the well-known Compton and Dry images of St. Louis, showing all the blocks and the names of businesses and the names on the steamboats at the time. Really a fantastic drawing, or print actually it is. And as I said, the underwater spirit, or as we know it, Payaso bird, is there. And you can also travel the river in the exhibit on a virtual interactive tour with one of our touch screens, which are cleaned many times each day. So there are a lot of precautions being taken right now to socially distance people, to make it safe to visit this exhibit. And I hope people do that.
There's another question for you, David. Do you see that one?
Oh, I missed that. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Wow. Yes. So you could easily take a kayak or canoe. You'd have to bring your own to the Two Rivers Wildlife Refuge. And in most cases, there are no there may be some liveries somewhere. There's Big Muddy Mike, who does these big Voyager canoes, and you can go out with other people, and it's extremely safe. Or if you are adventurous and have a kayak or can borrow one or a canoe, Two Rivers would be a great place to do this. There's a boat ramp at least. I should have mentioned that Two Rivers has several different accesses, even in Calhoun County, and they're not all equal. And that is to say that if you don't like the way one looks and feels to you, maybe a little too swampy or not a boat access, for instance, you might go to the next one. So I think there are 3 off that road, Rural Route 1 that I mentioned, and then of course there's some on the Jersey County side. But those are a little busier with people, and in season hunting and so forth. So, but I would definitely take a boat up to Two Rivers. It would be a great place to do it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Looks like we have answered all of our questions. We can give everybody one more chance while I just do my little wrap up and thank everybody for tuning in. And thank you, David, for creating yet another very interesting program. I wrote down all sorts of notes of places I want to go visit again. Personally, I thank you, and I thank you for doing this on behalf of MHS. A reminder to everyone, we started our Twilight Tuesday concert series. No, they're not live in front of the museum, but live in the museum via Zoom and Facebook Live. So you can tune in tonight here at 6 o'clock. Also has the river theme. Every week we're focusing on a different city along the Mississippi River. Last week was New Orleans. Tonight is St. Louis. Next week is Memphis. And the last week will be Minneapolis. So it's a lot of fun and it's a great excuse to listen to really great music. So with that, I will also invite you all to take our survey that will pop up as soon as you exit this. And thank you all so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Tam.